In the middle of the Second World War, when supply chains were collapsing and chemical fertilizers were being diverted to explosives factories, farmers across Europe, Asia and parts of North America faced a brutal question. How do you grow enough food when nitrogen, phosphate and potash are suddenly unavailable? Trains were bombed, ports were blockaded, factories were repurposed. Yet in many rural areas, harvests did not collapse. In some regions, they actually improved. The reason was not technology, it was biology. Hidden in plain sight was a plant that fixed its own fertilizer, rebuilt exhausted soil, fed livestock and returned year after year without replanting. Agricultural extension offices promoted it heavily during wartime. Military manuals referenced it. Prison camps and resistance farms relied on it. Then, within 2 decades, it virtually vanished from mainstream farming. Why wartime farmers depended on nitrogen-fixing forever plants. The plant at the centre of this story belongs to the legume family, alongside beans and peas. Its most famous wartime varieties were perennial alfalfa, red clover and crown vetch. In effect, every acre planted with these legumes was manufacturing fertilizer underground, day and night, without factories or chemicals. During the Second World War, agricultural ministries encouraged farmers to seed entire fields with perennial legumes for several years at a time. These so-called rest fields rebuilt soil fertility while producing hay, animal feed and green manure. When the fields were later ploughed for grains or vegetables, yields jumped dramatically. How one plant could restore exhausted land year after year. Alfalfa, often called the queen of forage, became the backbone of wartime soil recovery programs. Its roots regularly penetrate 10 to 15 feet deep. As those roots died and regenerated, they deposited organic matter far below the surface. Earthworms followed and, well, microbial life expanded. The compacted ground loosened and water infiltration improved. Farmers in Britain during the Dig for Victory campaign rotated wheat and potatoes with multi-year alfalfa and clover stands. German and Soviet farms used similar systems. In Japan, perennial soy relatives were used to rehabilitate terraced hillsides. How military and civilian systems depended on this plant. Wartime logistics planners understood that food security depended on soil biology. U.S. Army agricultural manuals for occupied territories recommended immediate planting of legumes to stabilize food production. POW camps that allowed gardening often relied on clover and alfalfa plots. Resistance groups planted hidden legume fields to support livestock and dairy operations. Livestock fed on alfalfa produced more milk and meat with fewer imported feeds. Manure from those animals further enriched the soil. It created a closed nutrient loop that required almost no outside inputs. In today's language, it was regenerative agriculture before the term existed. Why post-war industry had no use for self-fertilizing farms? After 1945, everything changed. Explosives factories converted to fertilizer production. Synthetic nitrogen became cheap and abundant. Tractors replaced horses. Monoculture systems expanded. Crops were bred for short-term yield, not long-term soil health. Perennial legumes did not fit this new model. Fertilizer companies, seed companies and equipment manufacturers promoted systems that required constant purchases. Agricultural universities shifted research funding toward chemical solutions. Extension services stopped emphasizing multi-year rotations. Within one generation, knowledge that had kept farms productive through global war faded. So, modern gardeners and homesteaders can absolutely revive this system, even today. The wartime forever plant system can still be used today, even on small plots. A backyard gardener, for instance, can dedicate one bed to perennial clover or alfalfa for 3 years. During that time, just cut it regularly and leave the clippings as mulch. Allow the roots to develop undisturbed. After 3 seasons, turn that bed into vegetables and compare the results. Many people, interestingly enough, report double yields without added fertilizer. On larger homesteads, a half-acre alfalfa stand can feed goats or rabbits while rebuilding soil. After 5 years, that land becomes premium crop ground. Rotating these stands across property sections, it creates a rolling fertility system. For small-scale use, white clover between garden rows fixes nitrogen continuously. Crimson clover can be sown in autumn and tilled in the spring. And red clover, it really thrives in cooler climates. The key is, allowing time. These plants are investments, not quick fixes. Why history quietly moved on while biology never did. No conspiracy erased this system. Economics did. During the Second World War, necessity forced farmers to rediscover these truths. But when abundance returned, most forgot them. But the soil did not forget. Fields that once carried alfalfa still outperform others decades later. Old homesteads often have mysterious sweet spots where nothing ever seems to fail. In many cases, those were former legume plots. Why this forgotten plant still matters today. With fertilizer prices rising, soil erosion accelerating, and food systems growing fragile, the lessons of wartime agriculture are, becoming relevant again. Perennial nitrogen fixers offer resilience that no supply chain can guarantee. They represent independence. They represent patience. They represent knowledge that once kept nations alive. If you are serious about history, survival, and long-term self-reliance, this is not trivia. It is a blueprint. If you found this guide valuable, take a moment to subscribe, share it with someone who still believes in practical knowledge, and help keep these forgotten systems alive for the next generation.